Good morning, everyone. How are you all? I hope you are all fit, fine, and good in health. Right? Okay. So, today we are going to continue the same chapter which I had started in my previous class. I hope you are all following me very well. And now I am going to continue the second page of the same chapter, that is cherry tree. Okay, so in my previous class I had taught you how that little boy, whose name was Rakesh, had planted a small cherry seed to the farthest corner of the garden and had forgotten all about it. As being a small kid, he did not bother about it. After planting the seed, he just simply forgot everything about it. I think you remember that point where I had stopped in my previous class. So now I am going to proceed further ahead the remaining part of the chapter. Listen it and try to follow me. Okay? Here I begin. Okay. When it was winter in the hills, a cold wind blew down from the snows and went woo, woo, woo in the deodar trees, and the garden was dry and bare. Now, finally, the season it had changed, and now it was which season in progress? The winter season in progress, and the very cold breeze it was blowing all the time, producing the sounds of wind sounds, and it was also blowing towards to those tall deodar trees grown near the garden and which was found to be everywhere near the surroundings. In the evenings, grandfather and Rakesh sat over a charcoal fire and grandfather told Rakesh stories. So this is how it started to be continued, the usual daily routine. What grandfather and Rakesh used to do, especially during the evening hours, both of them used to sit together in front of the fire, the charcoal fire, and grandfather was found to be telling various type of stories to Rakesh, and Rakesh used to really enjoy those stories told to him by his grandfather. Stories about people who turned into animals. This type of stories that grandfather told to Rakesh, which Rakesh was really enjoying it. Stories about people who turned into animals, and in turn Rakesh would read to him from the newspaper, and after the storytelling by the grandfather would be over, it would be the duty of Rakesh for grandfather? It was his duty to read the daily happenings, whatever it would be there in the newspapers, that Rakesh was supposed to read it out for grandfather. This is how now the grandfather as well as the grandson in turns, the grandfather told the stories and Rakesh read the news for grandfather. This is how they used to pass their time, usually in the evening hours when it used to be very cold, by staying just right in front of the fire, charcoal fire. Okay. Rakesh found the newspaper very dull, especially after the stories, but grandfather wanted all the news. No doubt, the stories would be very interesting for Rakesh, but while he read the newspapers, events in the newspapers, it would be very dull for him. But still he had to read because grandfather demanded it, and grandfather was there to enjoy all those news read by the boy Rakesh. Right? Okay. They knew it was spring when the wild duck flew north again. Now, in this way, spring season at that time, what it could be observed above the sky? Wild ducks was to be found there flying just high above into the sky. Into the sky north again to Siberia. Early in the morning, when he got up to chop wood and light a fire, Rakesh saw the V-shaped formation. Very early in the morning, when Rakesh used to get up and go out and see out in the open, just above into the sky, what he used to be find there? He used to find there a V-shaped mark. What it was after all? It was nothing else but the flight of those birds, which were flying by making the shape of V. That is what it is understood here as V-shaped formation. When the Siberian birds, they fly just above high into the sky, they make a kind of shape while flying. a V shape they make, and this is what it is very much enjoyable to notice, especially for the small kids like Rakesh. This is what he also used to enjoy, children. This is what we come to understand here. Form a V-shaped formation streaming northwards and heard the calls of the birds clearly through the thin mountain air. In this way, beside this, Rakesh also used to enjoy the various calls of the birds, various sounds of the birds coming from the hills, the birds which were calling, making loud sounds, chirping sounds, very beautiful sounds that those birds were making to call one another. These sounds Rakesh usually used to enjoy it so much early in the morning. Once morning in the garden, he bent to pick up what he thought was a small twig and found it to his surprise that it was well rooted. Suddenly, it was an incident one day early in the morning. By moving here and there in the different corners of the garden, finally he had reached certain a corner of that garden that something he happens to find out over there growing. Okay, and he bent to pick up what he thought it was a small twig. When he bent down to pick up that particular object from the ground, he thought it might be a small twig. Finally, when he happens to pull it out and found it to his surprise that it was well rooted. But when he pulls it out, he finds it that instead of twig, it was a well rooted plant. This is what Rakesh finds, and he becomes full of surprise, children. This is what we come to learn here. He stared at it for a moment and ran to fetch grandfather, calling, "Dada, come and look, the cherry tree has come up." In this way, Rakesh was so delighted to find it out finally that the seed which he had planted by him earlier was now well grown up. That is why he feels very happy, he feels very delighted, and calls to grandfather and tells him that, "See, grandfather, the seed Dada," here the common term it is called him, grandfather has been called here as Dada. "Dada, come and look, the cherry tree has come up." This shows that how much the little boy Rakesh was delighted to see the baby plant which had finally grown, isn't it? This makes him really very happy. "What cherry tree?" asked grandfather, who had forgotten about it. And grandfather himself also had forgotten about it, that he had told to the boy Rakesh to go far into the corner of the garden and plant that seed. He himself also had forgotten about it, isn't it? So, the seed we planted last year, look, it's come up. Grandfather, you don't remember the seed which you had told me to plant it into the corner of the garden? Finally, the seed has grown. It has become a good plant now. This is what the boy Rakesh tell. Rakesh went down on his haunches while grandfather bent almost double and peered down at the tiny tree. It was about 4 inches high. In this way, both of them together, grandfather as well as the grandson, now bent down so that they could study the plant more well. Rakesh also tried to observe and notice the plant as better as possible, and grandfather was also now trying his best to know about that plant, to understand about that plant, cherry plant, which was now in good height, almost about how much of inches? Almost 4 inches in height. Okay? "Yes, it's a cherry tree," said grandfather. "You should water it now and then." Finally, the grandfather tells to the boy, "Yes, you are right. This is the cherry tree. The same cherry seed which you had planted last year has now turned into a very good plant. You have to take care of it every day now by putting water to it, and sometimes by putting manure to it. You have to take care of it very well, my child." This is how grandfather suggests the boy. Rakesh ran indoors and came back with a bucket of water. Instantly, Rakesh also follows grandfather's instructions, goes inside his house and comes back with a bucket of water. "Don't drown it," said grandfather. Rakesh gave it a sprinkling and circled it with pebbles. Grandfather once again told to the boy, "Don't drown the plant with water. Just you pour the water in proper quantity." And Rakesh also follows the instruction. He just sprinkles the water all around the plant, and finally he keeps all around the plant small pebbles so that it could be noticed from a distance, it could be seen from the distance that something, a very special plant has been planted here, so that nobody brings any damage to it. This is how the boy performs the work here, children. He looked at the cherry tree every morning, but it did not seem to be growing very fast. Now it became like a daily routine for the boy. Every morning he used to visit to the cherry plant and used to notice it, but he did not find the plant growing so very fast. So he stopped looking at it, except quickly out of corner of his eye. After a week or two, when he allowed himself to look at it properly, he found that it had grown at least an inch. In this way, children's nature are same. You see, anything, the things which are found very interesting for the initial hours, they are very excited about it, but later on they do not have that much of the interest towards to it. Same thing it happened with Rakesh also. In the initial hour, when the cherry seed had grown, he was very delighted, but later on when he finds that the tree is not growing in height rapidly, his interest was now not that much like earlier. So he starts ignoring the plant after that particular day onwards. Just from a distance, he glances with the corner of his eyes and he passes away from there. In this way, almost a week was passed. But later on, after a week, once again he notices that the plant had grown 1 inch more in height. This is what he finds. Now let us proceed towards to the next paragraph, children. That year the monsoon rains came early, and Rakesh plodded to and from the school in raincoat and gumboots. In this way, the season once again it changed. Now finally it came the rainy season. That year the rainy season was quite early to reach, isn't it? And now Rakesh had to go to his school by wearing raincoats, gumboots. In this way he had to go with proper wearing. Ferns sprang from the trunks of the trees. Strange looking lilies came up in the long grass, and even when it wasn't raining, the trees dripped and mist came curling up the valley. In this way, as you know it very well, as soon as the rainy season starts, everywhere, all around the house, into the trees, everywhere, various kinds of plants, herbs and shrubs, everything it starts growing itself. Everywhere, all the surroundings, it become very green. Even the trees are also found, the trees' trunks are also found to be seen with the ferns springing out, isn't it? This is what it could be noticed into those trees nearby the houses where Rakesh lived. Strange looking lilies came up in the long grasses. Even those nearby surroundings where the grasses were growing, there itself the beautiful flowers like lilies were also found to be growing with full bloom. And even when it wasn't raining, the trees dripped and mist came curling up the valley. If even during those days when it was not raining at all, the trees dripped and mist came curling up the valleys. Those trees which were found to be there into the valleys were also found to be with full of laden with greenery, isn't it? The branches of those trees were also found to be laden with the green looking beautiful leaves on it. This is what the various changes in the nature could be observed after the arrival of the rainy season. This is what Rakesh was also able to notice it well. The cherry tree grew quickly in this season. At this particular point of the year, season of the year, Rakesh was able to observe it very well that the cherry tree, which was not growing so well earlier in the different seasons, but now after the arrival of this rainy season, he was able to understand and notice it very well that the cherry tree was now growing rapidly in good height. Isn't it? This is what we come to learn here. It was about 2 feet high when a goat entered the garden and ate all the leaves. Now, one day what happens? When the cherry plant was almost 2 feet in height, suddenly one day a goat happens to enter inside the garden and happens to eat all those good looking leaves of the plant. Only the main stem and 2 thin branches remained. In this way, only the main stem and the thin looking branches were only left out, because remaining all the leaves were eaten by the goat itself. This is what Rakesh finds. Never mind, said grandfather, seeing that Rakesh was upset. It will grow again. Cherry trees are tough. So in this way, when grandfather finds that the little boy was very upset, grandfather tries to console the boy. Don't mind, don't give up, don't be upset. Cherry tree will again come with beautiful leaves with it, because cherry trees are very tough, they are very strong, they will not die so fast. It will again give lots and lots of leaves to it. This is how the grandfather tries to make the boy understand. Okay? Towards the end of the rainy season, new leaves appeared on the tree. In this way, when the rainy season was going on, and finally when it was about towards to its end, once more it was found that the tree was with full of leaves on it. In this way, once again the cherry tree was looking very beautiful. Okay. Then a woman cutting grass cut the cherry tree in two. But unfortunately, one day a woman had come there in order to cut the grass, and by mistake, unknowingly maybe, the grass cutting woman happens to cut out the cherry tree along with the grass into 2 pieces. This is what it was happened. The cherry tree was cut into 2. When grandfather saw what had happened, he went after the woman and scolded her. When grandfather sees this, notices this, he runs towards to the woman and starts scolding her for the mistake that she had done. Okay, but the damage could not be repaired. But the damage which it was brought to the tree was not able to be repaired. Maybe it will die now, said Rakesh. Now the boy was really very much upset this time. This time he was fully sure that after this much of the harm which was brought to the tree, he was not quite sure whether the tree would survive or not. Maybe, said grandfather, and grandfather was also in doubt. That is why he says so. So this is what we come to learn in this page of the chapter, children. It is page number 32 that we have already completed now, and for today I think I will stop here only. The remaining part of the chapter will be continued in my next class. So till then I am going to stop it here, but I would like to suggest you, please follow the chapters properly. If anyone, those who were absent during my classes, they are suggested to follow my earlier videos so that you can understand it very well, and it would be much more easier enough for you whenever you will be there for the tests. So this much. Goodbye and take care.